I guess we need to start on culture. And
yes.
I'm afraid you weren't here yesterday, so we can have another conversation about Gregg Wallace. He's all over the front pages. Yeah. He's now apologised for his video over the weekend. I mean, a real dilemma for the BBC as to how they handle this. Need to have a proper investigation. Who knows what the detail is of what's gone on. But as well as this MasterChef this week, they've got coming up at Christmas both a special Christmas edition of MasterChef and MasterChef meets Strictly Come Dancing.
I didn't know that.
They do.
God, it gets more and more complicated and convoluted.
After a tough year for Strictly, they're going to turn things around at Christmas with a special...
Actually, you are the perfect contestant because you've been on Strictly and you're a great cook. But, I mean, this is what the Director General gets his money paid for, gets paid his money for, which is that, you know, it's a very tough one because I do respect the BBC's decision that they went ahead with MasterChef yesterday because the contestants are taking part. They want to be seen doing their thing.
It was all on iPlayer already.
Television, exactly.
And so it's on again tonight.
And it's very hard to completely cancel, you know, the archive of MasterChef, which has Gregg Wallace for going back years and years and years.
Some of those who call for it on the right of politics, Labour MP too, I don't remember them calling for Top Gear never to go out when Jeremy Clarkson would have said something really objectionable or whatever. But yeah, you can see it's been filmed, a large expense, and it would be unfair on the contestants. I agree to pull it. That's not to endorse Wallace in any way, who's now having to eat probably more humble pie than that was in that lad's van who got stolen.
Lord Edvezi, you former culture minister.
Are you all three former Strictly contestants?
Yes, but only one of us has won a cooking competition, and that is Ed. So he has the double crown.
Right. Okay.
But Ed...
But I've never stolen
It's like the Oscar and the BAFTA.
But Ed only got the man who'd been on Strictly, didn't he? And not the two women.
What do you mean?
When you said former Strictly, didn't you?
I know. That's why I quickly corrected it.
Not the two women who'd been on.
You
know what we get about the sexism.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I did. You saw that, Kevin. I did.
I did.
Anyway.
But Ed, what was going through the heads of BBC commissioners when they had a programme about which there have been complaints about behaviour, and the report into that behaviour upheld a number of those complaints?
Yes.
And they had a programme where they knew there had been complaints, because we have a record of that.
Yes.
And they decided that for a Christmas special, they would put those two shows together.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, the point is that, you know, I can't remember... I think it may have been Asma Mir that made the complaint as way back as 2011.
2017.
But somebody made a complaint in 2011, and it's clearly, you know, there is some substance to this. You know, Rod Stewart doesn't go on social media and bring his wife into the argument unless there's some substance behind what's been said, and no one would regard Penny Lancaster as some kind of, you know, put-upon person. She could stand up for herself, but so clearly it was pretty bad stuff. And, you know, it goes back to how media organisations often work with their talent. They don't react quickly enough, and they try and put the complaints into a sort of box and forget about it because the talent is bringing in the viewers, and they've got to be more robust, I'm afraid. And until you see an example where they are on the front foot and say this is not acceptable, and I'm afraid that's it for you, you're not going to get a culture change.
Kevin, the alternative view, of course, is that Strictly, which, you know, everybody said, oh, you know, terrible behaviour by, you know, on the show, lots of complaints, some of them upheld. It's really going to affect viewing figures. It hasn't.
No.
And maybe that's what the BBC thinks.
Yeah.
Actually, these brands and the people who work on them and with them, and all the people who are uninvolved, the contestants, you know, that's what sustains the show. It
is. Well, it takes a team to produce a show. It's not just the presenters. They're out in front. And it is a case. I think you've got to. There's a proportion, a proportionate response here, and I think to pull MasterChef would be disproportionate.
Right.
That's not to say Gregg Wallace now isn't almost vanished. He's taken himself away after, you know, middle-class women of a certain age. That's a very offensive comment, which made me think maybe there is something in the complaints he is denying from all these people over a long period of time. But I think Ed's right. You can just nip this in the bud. if somebody is behaving badly, they've got to be taken up about it and pulled up immediately.
Yeah. It did seem that there were occasions when that happened on MasterChef.
And then it just carried on. It became recurring
it's not sustained, is it?
Behaviour. It's just... Somebody's got to take control. But I understand how it happens with stars. I mean, look, it's not just TV. You look at sport and football clubs, and they have talent and they have players who behave really, really badly. And, of course, they're valuable. And so they don't want to tackle them, don't want them walking, they don't want to create a fuss. But it's very hard if you're junior and you're an employee and you're perhaps on a short-term contract for you to raise complaints.
There's no balance of power.
No, it's not. No, there's a real imbalance of power.
Should we just have a listen to Gregg Wallace's apology for his comments at the weekend? Let's have a listen. Well, I mean, you know, just on a human level, you can imagine that he was feeling very I very stressed. I mean, these very alone.
I mean, forgive me if I don't cry a river of tears, though. You know, you've got to think of the people who've been making the complaints he was just dismissing. You know, middle-class women of a certain age. You've got to think how they feel. They're the ones my sympathy is for. You don't have a bottomless well of sympathy. And yes, he was under duress, he was under stress, but why was he under duress and why was he
it's interesting, he's had lots of support from viewers here. When we discussed this yesterday, a lot of people got in touch to say, what has he actually done wrong? You know, has he made some off-colour remarks? Has he made, you know, sexualised comments, innuendo, which other people can make?
Yes, but there's a lot more detail in some of the newspapers today, and there's a particularly offensive remarks he made to a civilian, if I can put it that way, a non-celebrity MasterChef contestant who came back to be a guest judge, and that really was offensive, and she describes her reaction to it. So I do accept, you know, occasionally you might say, well, people should just tell him where to go, as it were, and get on with their lives. But, you know, he clearly did upset a lot of people. Having said that, obviously, you know, when the media gets its teeth into someone like this, and we've seen it happen with TV personalities in the past who may or may not have transgressed, it does become a bit of a feeding frenzy, doesn't it? And it does get, it can risk getting very out of control.
But those people, and it's difficult to explain because of legal reasons, and he's denying a lot of allegations. But I always say, and it seems to be women who've been the targets and they've been offended. I say, do you, if you're a bloke, do you want to be that man who is making people feel uncomfortable around you and at work? And what if it's your girlfriend, your wife, your daughter, your sister, a friend? Do you really? Is that all right? And you think, well, no, it's not. Then, so I can see people want to hold your horses a bit, but at the same time, do you want to be that person who's making other people around you feel really uncomfortable and bad about themselves because they're subjected to comments and behaviour which they find offensive?
Melanie Sykes, the presenter, said her experience on Celebrity MasterChef actually meant the end of her television career because she decided she no longer wanted to work in TV anymore. Let's have a listen to what she said. I mean, and people will say, well, you know, not liking someone being around, is that, you know...
No, but I mean, I think, look, I'm on Times Radio with Asma Mir is a fellow presenter, so, you know, she made the complaint, all those... You know, Asma Mir, who I know a bit, is not the sort of person who would make a complaint lightly. And this is what kind of gets me, as it were, as the case for the prosecution, is that Melanie Sykes mentions this in her biography. She glosses over it. She doesn't go into detail, but she says you would not believe some of the things that happened on set. So if you're looking for evidence, as it were, it's as plain as day that people were making complaints at the time. This is not people piling in when they see an opportunity to get some headlines for themselves or whatever. They were making complaints at the time and they were ignored.
She goes on in that clip, we just cut it out earlier, but she says, I didn't really like him being around, really, because it's all about vibrations and energy. She says that Gregg Wallace had said that appearing on the show would do a lot for her. And then she said, I didn't know what to say, so I smiled and said yes, but I was really thinking, yes, you have finally helped me decide to end my television career once and for all. I was done.
Well, he can be very proud of that, can't he? And as he paints himself the victim now.
Right, well, just to point out that, of course, Gregg Wallace denies, you know, all the accusations, all the complaints against him. And in relation to MasterChef airing, the BBC said MasterChef is life-changing for the chefs that take part, and the show is about more than one individual. A BBC spokesperson also said it would be wrong to report the BBC has done nothing if or when matters have been raised with us, not least because it's already being widely reported. There were interventions back in 2017 and 2018 where action was taken.
Maybe we should discuss a different issue where we have a more positive thing to talk about, which is the government announcing today new guidance on stalking. We had an interview with Nicola Thorpe a year and a half ago, where she said that, shockingly, the police for 8 months were investigating her stalker, but refused to reveal the identity of the stalker to her, or even for many months to show her a picture, which made her feel hugely unsafe. And I remember at the time us both being so shocked that that the law or the operational law could not be on the side of a scared victim in this case. And her campaigning, that interview, she ended up doing a review, and it's changing. And so...
Yeah, I mean, Nicola Thorpe is such an effective campaigner on this, and actually a lot of other issues. And it does it kind of crazy. I mean, I think somewhere I read that some of it might have been wrapped up in this kind of data protection regulation. They couldn't, you know, give away somebody's identity because of data protection rules. But, I mean, it is crazy. But we have this debate all the time, actually, on very, very highly sensitive criminal issues like rape victims, for example, and whether or not to name a defendant before they've been found guilty, because you risk, if that person actually turns out to be innocent, the minute they're named as a rape suspect, that's it for them as well. So there are some sensitive issues around here. I can understand that, you know, if you were being accused by someone of being a stalker and you weren't, and you were outed as that, but not to allow the victim to know, who's clearly, you know, under a huge amount of duress and strain, seems to me absolutely bizarre.
But it was crazy. There was no justice for those who were stalked. It just seems common sense. You should know who your stalker is, particularly if they're hiding online behind lots of different accounts. Now, some will get off, unfortunately, by being exposed and their victim knowing who they are, but she's shown that somebody standing up and taking a stand and having a campaign can make a difference against bad behaviour. And I just think it's a wrong is being righted today.
Shall we have a listen to what Nicola Thorpe told us last year?
It was for about 7 months that I knew nothing about him whatsoever. So he initially had stalked me over the course of 2 years, and it took me a while to realise, actually, that all of these instances were him, because he created 25 different profiles to stalk, harass me, send me explicit messages, photographs, threats to me, threats to my family. And then when I got the phone call saying that he'd been arrested, I was so relieved, because I thought, fantastic, who is he? They said, we can't tell you. I said, but where does he live, roughly? We can't tell you. Do I know him? Again, is he an ex-partner? We can't tell you anything.
The first time she ever saw her stalker face to face was when they were at court.
Yeah.
And she was in a queue waiting to go through the security system. And she's about to, you know, give her name. And she hears, just in front of her, someone who is 30 centimetres away give the name she knows is her stalker's name. Yeah. She realises she's been waiting in the queue with the person who is about to be in court on trial for stalking her.
QED, and therefore, you know, she's been kept in the dark about it, and she's been put in a very vulnerable position as she's going to the actual hearing where this guy is going to get prosecuted.
There's a terrible issue about how courts operate, and the victim really and the accused, the perpetrator and the target, just having to use the same entrances, same loos, hang around. Right. But on the question, for her own security, she deserved to know who it was, what they looked like, where they live, so they could be avoided if they were going to be outside the house in a cafe, in a pub.
She became totally paranoid.
Of course.
She didn't even know if it was someone she knew.
Yeah, exactly.
She didn't know if it was an ex, if it was, you know, one of her
It could be somebody she saw every day.
Exactly. Can you imagine the fear that would put in her head? She said to the police, can I just know how tall he is? Because if I know how big he is, I know the physical threat I face.
And then there are fresh injustices if she begins to suspect people who are innocent.
Yeah.
But it's...
But the important thing to say, Kevin, is, you know, for Nicola, I mean, obviously she's had experience in doing this, but even so, for somebody like her, a television star, to come on this programme and talk publicly and openly and revealingly, and we have people who come on this programme all the time who aren't television stars, but have had a difficult or challenging experience. We're having this in the next hour about people losing their blue badge for disabled parking, but people who come forward and tell their stories and say it's not fair, actually, through those interviews, things can change.
Can make a
and
difference.
The law is going to change now for women across the UK because of what Nicola Thorpe and others have done, and that is a great thing.
Yeah, and you help them by giving them a platform and a public airing, and then they find out they're not alone as well. They're not isolated individual cases, however strong they are, because there'll be mainly women. Not entirely, but there'll be mainly women whose names we don't know, who will have been suffering too, and hopefully that is now going to be changed, and they will get some form of justice by knowing who the slime ball is that is hiding to stalk them.
And we're going to speak to Nicola Thorpe at 8:30, along with the minister who's enacting all of this, Jess Phillips. We're about to talk about our campaign on loneliness, but just briefly, before we do that, I know, Kevin, you came in and you were outraged by the theft of the pie van, Tommy Banks pies. Apparently the pies are delicious. If you're ever at York Market, I think we should all say, buy a Tommy Banks pie.
This story's passed me by.
Well, you know what outrages me is somebody's working hard. They're making a living, they're showing initiative, producing pies, and then some lowlife steals the van and their livelihood, and those pies might just go to waste.
That's the shocking thing.
It is.
Yeah.
But what about the cheese that was stolen just a few weeks ago?
It was recovered, I think. I don't know if
2 tons of cheese.
The problem is Lord Ed Vaizey has just not been showing sufficient interest recently in pies.
Oh, I know.
That's the trouble.
Well,
who ate all the pies? Certainly not me.
Right.
You're half the man you used to be.
Thank you so much.